Hey there, in this video I want to show you exactly how to get up and running with a new Google Ads campaign. We're going to walk through all of the steps you need to travel through in order to get a campaign up and running in Google Ads, and I'll also share some extra tips along the way to make sure that you're getting the most out of the advertising spend that you're going to be putting through with your advertising. Okay, so first off, we can see here, I've headed to ads.google.com. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Get Started. Now, when you do get started, you will need your login details. So if you already have a Gmail account, for example, you can log into your Gmail. I've already logged in on my account, so we're just going to open this up. And what we can see is in my particular account, I already have access to a couple of Google Ads accounts. So I've got my Love Starter demo account, I've got my primary account, and I have another testing account that I've actually closed down. So if you're just getting started for the very first time, you won't see this step. You'll actually be on the next step straight away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Create a New Google Account here at the bottom. Okay, so this is going to load up, and what we're going to do is first off, we need to make some decisions here. So what's actually happening is by default, Google Ads is going to try and guide our experience, and this is actually going to create what's called a smart campaign. Now, a smart campaign, really, I would suggest that you don't begin with a smart campaign. Basically, because what will happen is it's going to spend your budget wherever it can actually get people viewing your ads. Now, that might sound like a good thing as you're getting started. Okay, yeah, I want to get lots of people viewing my ads. But the problem with a smart campaign is really the lack of control and the lack of really precise targeting in the way that you're going to be targeting not just your ads, but also how you're going to be targeting that advertising budget, where you're going to be spending your dollars. So you can go through these steps if you choose, but again, I'd probably advise against this because it's going to place your ads across a whole range of different areas. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on Switch to Expert Mode at the bottom. And this might be a little bit daunting at first if you're just getting started, but we will travel through really important settings and configurations as you begin to create your account. So let's click on Switch to Expert Mode. And this will send us through to the full version of Google Ads. Now, there will be lots of options that we'll see in a moment, so don't get overwhelmed. What we're going to see here now is this is Google Ads trying to guide the setup of our first campaign. So you can see there's lots of different options. You can say, yes, I'm trying to sell through my site, for example, or maybe I'm trying to generate leads. I want people to complete my contact form. And there's a whole range of different options here. So for today, what we're going to do is I'm actually going to select this one on the bottom right-hand side, which is to create a campaign without guidance, which basically means that you're in control of all the settings. You can, of course, if you want to, if you are just getting started, you might want to go with like, I just want to drive website traffic. And that's perfectly fine, but let's click on this one down here on the right-hand side, which is to create a brand new campaign without Google providing sort of specific recommendations. So we're going to go without guidance. So what this means is that now we can select the type of campaign we'd like to configure inside Google Ads. So we can select from a search campaign. This is where we show our ads on Google search results. And if you are getting started, this is actually the type of campaign I recommend because basically, it's very controlled. We've all, performed a search on Google, right? We know what the experience is going to be like. We know we enter in a keyword, we're going to get a search results page, and then we can click through on one of the listings that we see inside that search results page. So this is where we will start, but just also to quickly give you a summary of the different campaign types. You can also run a display campaign. This allows you to run ads with other content. So for example, if you're browsing a news site or an entertainment site, you're just browsing that content and you might see ads placed on that site. So we can also place our ads along with these other pieces of content. Now, the Google Display Network is made up of thousands and thousands of different sites. This does include a whole lot of different third-party sites. And as we can see here, we can also create display ads on YouTube. Across to the right, we can create video campaigns. So for example, if you do have video content, for example, on YouTube that you want to promote, or you've got like a short, ad format of your video content, then you can promote this on YouTube with a video campaign. If you want to promote your mobile app, you can create an app campaign. And there's also the smart campaign that we were just talking about. So this is where we're basically handing over the management, I suppose, or the day-to-day management, I should say, across to the Google AdWords system. So probably wouldn't recommend that. And we can see there's a couple of other types here. There's shopping, local, and discovery ads. These aren't available because of the selection I made here, which was to create a campaign without guidance. So if you do, for example, want to promote your customers to a physical location, then you can of course choose the local store options, and this will make this available for us. Okay, but for today's video, what we're going to do is we're going to select on a search campaign. And then what we can see here is we can then select, what's the sort of, I suppose, overall objective for this campaign. So is it to drive, visits to our website? Is it to drive calls, or is it to drive app downloads? These are optional, so I'm just going to leave those blank for now, and I'm just going to click on continue. So this is now where we need to start really refining down the configurations and the settings for our first Google Ads campaign. So first off, we're going to name our campaign. Now, the best way to think about a campaign inside Google Ads is, I suppose, like a folder. So our campaign is like a top-level folder. So we might, for example, have a campaign advertising, let's say that we're selling cameras online. We might have one campaign for one type of camera brand, and then we have a different campaign, a separate folder for the other camera brand that we're selling. So it's a top-level folder structure. So what we're going to do in today's video is I'm going to actually advertise my blog. So I'm going to put in a campaign name for my blog. So I'm going to call it blog, and I'm going to be advertising a particular blog post, which is my Google Analytics glossary. So I'm going to call this one GA glossary. And this is going to be my campaign name. So you can change this, don't worry too much, but just give it something descriptive so that you know what you're looking at when you jump into your Google Ads account. Moving down, we did select, remember, that we're going to create a search campaign, but Google is trying to give us more options. It's trying to give us that flexibility to get our message out. So we can see here we're going to be targeting the search network, but by default, Google will also display our ads on Google Search Partners. Google Search Partners are basically third-party sites that also present search results. Now, as we are just getting started with Google Ads, I'm actually going to deselect this. You can enable it again later if you choose. But basically, I found for my campaigns, as I do get started, I like to be really precise with my targeting. I just want my ads to be shown on Google search results. So I'm going to disable this option. And the next one I absolutely encourage you to do whenever you're creating a search campaign is disable the option to include your ads in the display network. Remember, I was just mentioning that the display network is really content-based websites. It's a totally different experience. So if you do want to run display ads, then my recommendation would be is to actually create an entirely separate campaign inside your Google Ads account when you're ready to run those display ads. So this is really important as you get started. Make sure that you disable the option for search partners, and also make sure that you're disabling that option for the Google Display Network. It just means you're going to be more precise with your targeting as you begin advertising through Google Ads. Now we can see some more settings. So let's click on more settings to see the additional options that we have. Now, as we're getting started, we probably don't need to use a whole lot of these. One that you may choose to use is this first one, which is a start and end date. This basically allows you to create a starting date and an ending date for this campaign. In other words, do we want to switch it on a particular day, and do we want to switch it off on a particular day? So for example, what we might do is we might say, okay, it's already midway through December. So what we're actually doing is we're going to be creating a campaign that we want to launch in January. So I might select a particular date in January. I want to start the campaign. And seeing as I'm just getting started, maybe I want to run the campaign for a couple of months. So then I could select a particular end date. So I might say I want to run this from, mid to late January through to the end of March, for example. If you select none, basically what this will mean is that your ads will continue to run until you actually, manually go into your Google Ads account and switch the campaigns off. Now for my campaign, I'm going to leave it on the defaults actually. So I'm going to set the start date for today, and I'm going to set none for the end date, because I know that I'm going to be going back into my account and managing things and optimizing and improving the performance of my campaign. So I'm going to leave those settings, but again, feel free to change them as you need. As we travel down, now campaign URL options, you can just leave this one blank. This is in essence a more advanced option. So if you have a particular like third-party tracking system that you need to be hooking into, you can use this, but we're going to be using Google Analytics, so we can just leave that. It does it all for us automatically, so we don't need to worry about that one. Dynamic search ads, we're going to move past this today. This provides some automation in terms of the creation of our ads. For today, we're going to really stick down to the basics of creating a really solid search campaign that we're actually managing ourselves. So we're going to leave that one off. Another one that you may want to consider, really depending on your particular product or service that you're offering through your site, and also of course your particular audience that you want to target, you can do a schedule. And what this basically means is that you've got particular times when you want your ads to be on, and other times during the day when you want them to be off. So for example, if you were an emergency locksmith, for example, you might only provide service after hours, and in that particular case, you only want your ads to show at those particular times of day. So you can set, when you want your ads to start and when you want your ads to turn off during the course of the day. I'm going to leave those on the default because I want people to come through to my Google Analytics blog throughout the day. It doesn't actually worry me at what time they're actually looking to come through to my site. So next up, really importantly, is your targeting options around the geographic location of your audience. So here we can see I'm based in Australia, so it's automatically selecting my default location here for me, but we might want to change this. So for my blog posts, for example, I might want to include people globally. So I could, for example, select all countries and territories. Now, really, I'd probably discourage you from selecting this option, because what this is going to mean is that geographically you're getting, the most coverage, of course. But this is going to also mean that as a result, you're going to burn through your advertising budget very, very quickly. So what I want you to do now is really take a moment to think about, where is your existing audience? Where are you currently getting, high levels of engagement? Where are your current customers? Are they, are they quite local to you? Are they in your country? Are they in a different country? Think about where you're already getting sales or leads from your particular target audience. Where's that ideal audience? And what you want to do is really balance that with your location targeting. So we want to be fairly precise, but not overly precise. If we do like a postcode or a zip code, for example, we might not have enough people in that particular geographic location to really get the most out of our advertising budget. And then on the extreme side, if we were to go with all countries and territories, we might be overcommitting our advertising budget. So what we might want to do is go a bit narrower. So we might want to go Australia, and you can also make additional adjustments to this into the way that people are included or excluded from that particular geographic location. For now, I'm going to leave the defaults. I'll actually show you once we've created this campaign, you can actually come back into your campaign and modify these whenever you need. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to add 2 locations. So I'm going to go and I'm going to put in the United States. So you can begin to type the geographic location for your targeting, and I'm just going to go targeting. And then I'm also going to hit Australia as well. So I want to do Australia, which is where I'm based, and then the United States. So you can see this is actually going to be quite broad. Now I'm choosing this because these are 2 key audiences for my blog that I want to advertise to, and this is just going to be a very small controlled campaign as I get started. I'll limit things down with a budget. For your campaign, just remember, really think about that balance. You want to be fairly precise, but not too precise, and you really don't want to be too broad because your budget will be spent very quickly. Traveling down, we can then see we have languages. I'm going to leave this for English for my language. Also, this is a more advanced option. Maybe we can come back to this in another video, but basically the audiences let you create and define particular audience segments that you want to target. A really popular example of an audience is a remarketing list, where you're actually going to show your ads to people who've already been to your website. Entirely different topic, and I actually posted a video about this last week. So if you're interested in creating a remarketing list, then do check out the extra resources below this video so you can find out more about creating a remarketing list in one of my other video pieces. Okay, so next up, super important, is our budget. So this is the average amount that you want to spend on any given day. So we can see here, really important is selecting your currency. So I'm based in Australia, and yeah, okay, I want to spend my advertising budget in Australian dollars. So just make sure you've got the right currency set for your daily budget amount. And then what we need to do is we need to put in that average daily budget. Now, I do really recommend starting small here. So for example, if we put in $100 a day, then we're committing to, spending up to, or even slightly more, depending on the day, that $100 budget on average per day. So if you are just getting started, so that you're not, burning a giant hole in your credit card, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a daily budget of $10. So that means, basically on average, I'm not going to be spending over the course of the month around $300 is my budget there. Okay, so now what we can do, now that we've set our budget, is we can put in our bidding option. So this is really about how much do you want to spend for individual levels of engagement. So for example, an individual click through to our ad. So what we can see here is it's highlighted in green. It's saying that, hey, by default, this campaign is actually going to use maximize clicks as the bidding strategy. So what this means is it's going to try and take that $10 budget that I just put in above, and it's going to try and achieve the most number of clicks possible within that budget. So this is going to automate the bidding for us. So we can choose to leave this option if you take the time after getting started with Google Ads. What I would encourage you to do is absolutely make sure that you set up conversion tracking, because then what we can see is here, we can move to options like conversion-based bidding. So what we can say is we want to spend a certain amount on a particular conversion action, as an example. So this is an automated bidding strategy. If you want even more precise control, you can select a bidding strategy directly. So we can see Google saying, hey, this is actually not recommended. But this gives us the full list of options we have when it comes to how much we want to spend on a particular click through to our website. So at the very controlled end, we can say we want to manually set that maximum amount. So we can go with a manual CPC bidding. So I'm going to actually go with the maximize clicks, which was the default. And what we might want to do is we might want to just set, okay, maximum CPC is going to automate the bidding for us, but at the same time, I do want to set an upper limit. I do want to put a cap on the maximum bid amount. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a maximum bid of $2, just to make sure that I'm not, going crazy with my bid amounts. And you can always, again, adjust this after you've actually launched your campaign. You'll begin to want to test things to see, what works for your campaign, your audience, as well as, of course, your budget. So we're going to begin with a $2 maximum limit on the automated bidding strategy. The other thing I just want to also point out is not just that you can modify that maximum cap after the fact, but you can also modify the bidding strategy too. So let's go with maximize clicks for now, and then we can come down and we can see there's even more setting options. We're going to leave these. Basically, this is going to control conversion tracking. We're just launching a brand new Google Ads account, right? So we haven't taken the time yet to set up conversion tracking. And then optimizers are basically about when we have more than one ad variation inside our ad groups, which we'll talk about in just a moment. This is really controlling which ad should Google show. So with a lot of the automated bidding strategies, it's going to automatically optimize that for us. So we don't have a whole lot of control anyway. So we're going to leave those defaults. And then coming down, ad extensions, we're going to come back to. If this is something that you're like to learn even more about, then let me know in the comments. Maybe we can create another video on ad extensions. Basically, ad extensions, as the name suggests, they extend our ads. So basically, they allow us to provide extra information, extra context along with the ads that we're about to create. So here we can see some popular ones. Site link extensions allow us to place additional links with our ad. Call out extensions, basically text. So it's like similar to a site link, but without the link component. And if, for example, we're a local business and we want to attract that local market, then we can also add a phone number extension, so a call extension, so people can call us. For now, I'm going to leave these because we can actually set these up after, and it's sort of important to write your ad first so that you know which sort of extensions are appropriate to go with the messaging that you're putting into your actual ad copy. So I'm going to leave those now and I'm going to click Save and Continue, and this is going to send us to our next step. So at this stage, what we've done is we've created our campaign, which, as I mentioned, is the top level folder structure for our account. So we've got, in my particular case, I'm going to be advertising my Google Analytics blog post. So that's my folder, that's my campaign inside Google Ads. Now, inside that folder, you can create ad groups, which is like a subfolder. And this is basically a way to sort of organize your different keywords inside your search campaign. What we basically want to do at this point is to think about the types of keywords that we're going to be targeting for our ads. So which keywords are people going to be searching for that we then want to display our ads as people are searching for those particular terms. Now, as we get started, it is a little bit difficult to really think about all the different ad groups that we want to create. So what I'm going to do, and you probably I recommend doing this as well, is what we're going to do is I'm just going to create a general list. So I'm going to call my ad group general, and then later, once we've actually created this campaign, we can jump back into the campaign and actually create additional subfolders. So for now, we're going to keep things nice and simple. From here, what we can do is as we can see, we've got a couple of options. So we can enter in like the page on our website to get ideas for our particular keywords that we want to target. So maybe let's do this. I'm going to plug my, let's see what we get. So I'm going to plug in my URL here. So I'm going to put in lovestarter.com/blog, Google Analytics glossary. Okay, and let's see what it comes up with. So this is the blog post I'm going to be advertising. Of course, what you want to be doing is plugging in the particular landing page that you want to be targeting. So here what we can see is it's come back with some different suggestions, and they're actually all pretty sort of broad. Some of them basically, my blog post is a glossary of important Google Analytics terminology, and these they're okay, but I'm not super keen on them, so I'm actually not going to go with that option. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to start by plugging in some keywords that I feel are appropriate for my blog. So I'm going to put in Google Analytics glossary and Google Analytics terminology. So I'm just going to start with a couple of keywords. As we travel through in a moment, we will actually look at the different keyword match types as well. So basically, by default, as we enter in these keywords, they're going to be entered as broad match keywords by default. And what this means is that Google's going to try and achieve the most coverage for those terms that we've entered and also terms that relate to that. So although we've entered only 2 particular keywords, we might actually find that we get more traffic coming through to our site. As we're getting started, we'll also see here it's providing some estimates on the budget. So at this stage, it's showing that we're not going to get any clicks. I know that's actually not true, but let's put in a more general term just to see what happens here. So here we can see now for these keywords, and I've just got Google Analytics as a general term there, we can now see it's giving us an estimate for the number of clicks per day, cost per day, and the average CPC, which is the average cost per click that we're going to spend. So for now, I'm happy with that. I'm going to leave that. I'm just going to click Save and Continue. And then what we'll do in a moment is we'll jump back into the keyword planner. And this is really where we're going to spend our time to research the keywords that we want to advertise on. So now what we can see at the top here, we've created our campaign, we've created our ad group, our first one, that general ad group, and we'll want to expand that in a moment. And now we need to create our ads. So this is where we need to create that copy that's going to really engage with people as they're searching on Google. So we can see here what we have by default is we've got one of the ad formats here. So what we can see here is it's asking us to put in a whole lot of headlines. It's not actually going to show all of those headlines for our ads at the same time. We can actually see this little preview on the right. So it's actually going to show 3 headlines. But what Google's going to do is if we add in lots of headlines, it's going to use its machine learning to actually combine up the best sort of headline combination and description combination for the person who's actually searching on Google. So what we need to do is we need to start with the final URL. This is the page on your website that you want to send people to. So this is our landing page. So let's go ahead and enter in the URL for our landing page. So I'm going to enter in my blog post for my example. But remember, this will be the particular page that you want to advertise on Google. Okay, so I've entered the page and we can see here the display URL update. So it's my website, and we can actually see in the little preview here on the right, it's now showing that as well. If you like, you can also plug in the display URL, some additional sub folders here just to make it look a little bit more relevant. I think this one's going to be a little bit long for my 15. You can see here there's a 15 character limit. It's going to be a little bit long. So basically my options would be to like reduce this down so that I'm at least sort of feeding in that keyword into my ad. The one thing here is, you don't see this a lot, but if someone was to like copy that URL, it's not actually going to take them to the right page. So what I might do is I might just remove that. I might actually get rid of blog as well. I'm just going to go with my top level domain name as my display URL inside my actual ad there. So now what we can see is we need to write our headline options. And from here, again, Google's taken a look at the landing page on our website, and it's going to provide some automated suggestions for us. So we can go ahead and we might select some of those. Bit too long. And we're going to write out our ad headline options. So go ahead and take some time to think about how you're actually going to engage with your customers. You want these to be, catchy. Ultimately, at this stage, what we want people to be doing is to think about they've done that search on Google, they're seeing our ad, and what we want them to do is actually engage. We want them to click on our ad and travel through to our website. So we want to take some time to write some engaging headlines to really capture people's attention as they're searching, and making sure that they are relevant to the keywords that we're targeting as well. So go ahead and take some time to do this in your own account, and then we're going to come in and do the descriptions as well. So I'm just going to enter in some now. Okay, so I'm not going to enter in them all. I'm going to take some time after to do that. And then now I'm going to enter in some descriptions. So these are basically the description text. It's longer, so we can actually see here we've got 90 characters now. Our headlines were each 30 characters. So again, this is really about being engaging for the audience and being relevant to what they're searching for. Okay, so now I'm happy with my first ad, and I'm going to click on Save and Continue. So at this stage, we've just created one ad. What we will want to do is we will want to go back into Google Ads in a moment and actually create an additional ad variation. So now what we can see is we've created our settings for our campaign. We've created the individual ad group. We've created one ad. We want to go back in a moment and create more ads, of course, for testing. And now I need to enter in my billing details. So we can see this is pre-filled for mine because I already had the existing Google Ads account. So now I'm going to set up my new campaign and my new Google Ads account as well. Okay, so now I've launched my campaign. So let's go in and explore our campaign. So now we're in the overview tab here for Google Ads, and we can see on the left-hand side we've got this option called All Campaigns. So this is super useful as you start to build out additional campaigns inside your Google Ads account. We can also see we have our brand new campaign. So this is one I created for my blog. And if you have a look in your account, of course, it's going to be the campaign that you've just created as well. Now, what I do recommend is we're going to come into Campaigns, and I'm just going to actually click on Pause, because I'm not quite ready to start spending my budget yet, right? Because I just have a single ad group and I only have one ad variation. So we need to take a little bit of extra time before we actually launch this campaign live. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to come into the campaign, and this is going to open up the ad group. We can see here I have my general ad group in the menu on the left as well. So I can click on my ad group, and if I come down now, clicking on my ad group, I can see the ads tab. So this is where I've got my ad that I just created. I can also see the keywords. So if we click on keywords and then search keywords, I have the keywords that I entered in when I was setting up that campaign for the first time. So what we can now do is we can start really thinking about additional keywords that we might want to include in this account. Now, really a great way to do your keyword research is using the keyword planner. So what we need to do is we need to click on this tools and settings option, and then on the very left here I'm going to click on a keyword planner, and this really allows us to spend more time building out those keywords. We saw we got a few ideas when we were actually creating our campaign based on, for example, the content on our website, but this is really the tool that we want to use. So I'm going to click on Discover New Keywords, which allows us to research additional keywords. And let's go ahead and I'm going to enter in my one, but of course, for your particular offer, enter in one of the starting terms that you entered in as you created your campaign. And now once you've entered that in, you can do one, maybe we'll do two, we'll do the other one as well. And let's click on Get Results. So now what we can see in the keyword planner is at the top, we have the particular keywords that we searched for. They're also here in the search bar. And then below this, we can see a whole range of different recommendations that Google's coming back with for our particular term. So additional keyword ideas that we might want to target. Now in this account settings column, what we can see is that this is actually a term that I already have in my account, because that's one of the terms I entered when I was actually building out that campaign, while this terms one isn't actually in my account yet. So what I can do is I can select this, and you can either create a plan, which is like a draft set of keywords, or you can straight away put the keyword into your existing campaign. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start actually creating a different ad group. So I'm going to call this one terms. And what we'll do is we've added that one in. So we're going to go broad match by default for now. And so now we can see we've added that one in. It's now showing inside our account too. So now what we can do is we can come down, and we're going to spend some time looking at the particular keywords and deciding if these suggestions are suitable for the ads that we want to be running inside our Google Ads campaign. Now I'm just going to also add Google Analytics terminology. And let's just see if we can get some additional suggestions here. So we can see there's a few results here. So glossary, this one could be a good one. People searching for a particular PDF. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this into our existing campaign. And I'm going to do my general ad group. And I'm going to click on Add. Here's another one, a glossary. It has 2018, but that's okay. We're going to put that one into our glossary as well. And here we've got terms definitions. So that would go into my terms ad group. Key terms, that looks good too. So you're going to spend some time here. We can see in mine, I've only got a few, like a handful, 33 different suggestions. Depending on the keywords that you've entered into the keyword planner, you might have a lot of keywords to go through. So spend some time looking at the keywords and really ask yourself, are these terms that I'd expect that ideal audience member, that target market for my product or service to actually be searching for on Google? If the answer is yes or maybe, then I'd definitely be putting that into one of the ad groups that you've created. So now I've started that. You'll want to spend a bit more time, but what we're going to do now is I'm just going to close the keyword planner, and we're going to head back to our campaign. So now we can see we've got a general and terms, and I'm just going to actually come back onto the campaigns, and here I can now click on the ad groups tab, and we can see we have now two different ad groups. I'm going to rename this one to glossary, because what I want is I want to have really related keywords. So I want to have keywords that relate to terms and terminology in my terms ad group and glossary related keywords in my glossary ad group. So what I'm going to do now is I think I need to move one, right? So if I come into search terms, I've got my terminology one and I'm going to leave that one. So what we might do is we might just get rid of this one. So I'm going to copy this keyword quickly. And I'm just going to remove this one from this ad group because I don't want that one. And the other one I did add in when we were creating our campaign is that very broad one. So I'm actually going to remove that one as well. I'm not sure if it caught that. Let's see if it did. Remove. Because Google Analytics is a little bit broad for the blog post that I'm looking to advertise. So now I'm just going to go into terms and I'm going to add in that one that I removed. And now what I wanted to talk to you about is the different keyword match type options. So what I've done is at the moment I've added them all in as broad match, but we might want to actually go in and modify them a little bit. So here at the bottom of the keyword panel, we can actually see it saying by default we're going to be broad match, but if we put our terms in quote marks like this, we're going to be using phrase match. And what phrase match does is it's actually saying we want to be more precise with the displaying of our ads. We want to actually see that particular phrase when people are searching. And then at the very extreme end, we can actually use exact match. And that's where we use the square brackets. And what that's saying is we just want to match that keyword exactly. Nothing before, nothing after it. Now, there is a little bit of a disclaimer here because Google Ads will automatically match close variations of the terms that we're entering, even if we're using this exact match. So it can include like slight misspellings. It can include where keywords of like the individual words have been reordered as someone is searching, as long as they have the same sort of intent. So just bear in mind that even if you're using phrase or exact, Google can still continue to show ads on slight variations for terms that are closely related to what we've entered in to our keyword. So what I actually do recommend is there's another type of match type which is called a broad match modifier, and this is where we actually put a plus sign in front of individual words within our keyword. And so what we can do, for example, is we can say, I'm going to put in a plus sign in front of terminology. And what this is saying to Google Ads is that we want to match broadly, we want to try and get traffic, but I want to make sure that there is a close, at least that word or a close variation of the word with a plus sign in front of it. So this is a really good way to be slightly more precise without going through and adding in a whole lot of phrase match and exact match keywords as you start to build out your campaign. So what you can do is you can actually now head back and have a look at your search keywords and think about, are there ones that I want to match like really precisely? So I want to have terms in there. So I'm going to broad match modify that one. I want terms and I want definitions in this one. So by putting the plus sign is we're saying, hey, we want to match those particular elements really precisely inside the particular keywords people are searching for on Google. So you can go ahead and do that. I'm going to head back to my glossary as well. We can still see we're on the search keywords. I'm just going to add those in as well, my broad match modifiers. The other thing I should highlight, if you want to learn more about the keyword match types, I do have a dedicated video just about keyword match types. So I'll make sure there's a link for you in the description below this video if you'd like to learn more specifically about keyword match types in your Google Ads campaigns. So I'm almost finished here. I'm just going to save this one and finally my other one here, glossary. So what we've done now is importantly is we've got these two different ad groups, these two different subfolders, and each one has a theme. So my glossary ad group has that theme of search terms that include glossary, and my terms ad group has that theme of terms and terminology. So what this means now is when I come back, I can actually write ads that relate to that theme of the subfolder that I've created inside my campaign here. And we're going to go ahead and make sure that we actually have entered all of the available headlines and description lines for each of these dynamic search ads. As I mentioned when we were creating the campaign, we were doing this a little bit quickly, so we do want to make sure that we've got all of the headline options available. It just provides the maximum sort of coverage for our ads. And the other thing to highlight is really thinking now about the groupings of keywords that you've created in your ad group. So here what we might do is, this is in my glossary group, right? So instead of saying GA terms for Google Analytics terms, I might now modify these headings and descriptions to make sure they're really targeted to those keywords that I have inside each of my ad groups. So I'm going to go ahead and do this now and make sure that you're doing it inside your own account as well. And now that we've created all of the headlines, we can now add in additional description lines. So we can add in 2 more description lines. And again, we get this preview on the right. So we can actually see what our final ad might look like based on the different sort of combinations of headlines and descriptions that we've entered into our responsive search ad. And now we can save our ad. Okay, now Google Ads will automatically combine those to create our responsive search ad as people are searching. So now what we can do is we can go into our terms ad group, but what we can actually do that might make things a little bit quicker is I'm going to select the ad, click on edit and then copy. And now I can head into my terms ad group. And now what we can actually do is I can look for this little paste option, and this is going to paste the ad into this new terms ad group that doesn't currently have any ad variation. So I'm going to go paste, and then what I can do is I can actually open up the ad and modify it, because of course we want it to be much more related to terms and terminology compared to the other ad group where we wanted it to relate more to glossary. So it's just going to take a little bit to paste in, and now I can go ahead and I can click on edit. And now I can actually go in and I can modify this. So instead of glossary, I'm going to want to put in like terms and terminology. And when I'm happy, I can click on save. So now we have our terminology ad and our glossary ad. And remember, we're taking that time to create the ad groups is because we want to tweak that messaging and the terms that we include in each of the ads. Okay, so far now what we have is we've got our 2 ad groups, we have our keywords, we've talked about keyword targeting, and we also have at least 1 ad variation in each of the ad groups. Now, what you might find is when we're talking about Google Ads is people will talk about creating multiple ad variations for testing. Now, the thing here to remember is that Google is looking at different ways to really optimize Google Ads. And one thing that we can see is that we only have the option to create a responsive search ad. We no longer have this option to create a text-based ad, at least in my account. So do check out your account. If you do have the option to create a text-based search ad, then you can go ahead and do that so you have the 2 ad variations. But since we do have responsive search ads, we already know that it's going to automatically combine those different headlines for us. So to then go ahead and create a whole nother ad is an option for us. But as we're just getting started, this is automatically going to combine those headlines and descriptions for us. So a couple of tips here. You can go ahead and create a call ad. So if you do want to drive calls to your phone number, you could go ahead and click this option to create a call ad. As we can see here, it's actually designed for mobile devices, and it will display, instead of like a text-based headline, it's encouraging people to call through to our number. Now for my blog post, I'm not actually trying to drive calls, right? So in this particular case, I'm not going to create a call type ad. So another thing that we can do is we can actually use ad variation. What this is allowing us to do is actually perform testing. So if we go ahead and click this, what we can see is we can actually go ahead and we can look for particular terms. So we might go, for example, we might look for Google Analytics in our headline, in all of our headlines, and then we might want to test that and see if we replace that with GA. So Google Analytics switching out to GA, does that drive, more people clicking through to our website? Does it drive more people converting on our website? I'm not entirely sure, right? So this allows us to actually create a test inside Google Ads to see if that change, in this case of the text in the ad, will actually make a difference to the outcomes of our campaign. So that is more advanced. If this is something you're interested in learning more about, then let me know in the comments. Maybe we can make a future follow-up video on actually doing the ad testing through ad variations inside Google Ads. Okay, so now we've got our campaign. I just wanted to go through some additional options. So if we actually come into our campaign, I wanted to highlight, you can click on settings for your campaign. Remember when we actually created our campaign through that setup workflow, there was a whole lot of things that I chose, like I chose my daily budget amount, for example. I talked about the different sort of bidding strategies you can use and adjusting the maximum cap on the automated maximum CPC bidding. So you can actually come in, if you ever need to come in and make those adjustments again, just look for your campaign, select it, and then look for settings, and then you can modify those settings for your campaigns. There's some other options that I just wanted to quickly touch on before we actually launch our campaign. So if we actually come into devices, so what we can actually do is we can make what's called bid adjustments. This allows us to further tweak and modify the sweet spots for our campaigns. So for example, if you know that your audience is primarily on mobile, what you can do is you can actually come in and say, I want to increase my bids for people on a mobile device. So for example, if I put in increase 100%, what that now means, if my maximum bid is $2, this now means that if someone's seen as being on a mobile device, I'm increasing that maximum now by 100%. So now for mobile phone users, my maximum bid instead of $2 becomes $4. So you can actually use this to adjust the sweet spots for your campaign. Now, I actually encourage you to leave these as the defaults as you get started, because what will happen is, as we launch our campaign, we'll start to collect data about the performance of our campaign. So we'll start to see the number of clicks. We'll see other details coming through as well. So that once we've launched, we can use those insights to start making these adjustments. But I just wanted to show you that there are additional options available in Google Ads to really tweak the performance of your campaigns moving forward. Now, the other thing that I wanted to give a shout out to is to conversion tracking. So if you actually come into tools and settings and click on conversions, this option here, you will want to take the time to actually set up conversion tracking inside your Google Ads account. What this means is that we'll be able to see, of course, clicks and how much cost we're incurring for our particular ad campaigns that we're running, but we'll also be able to see the outcomes. So really importantly, if you wanted to drive sales on your website or leads on your website, you want to take the time to set up that action as a conversion, so you can then come into your reports and actually see how many people are converting. So here we can see we've got things like clicks and cost, but we don't know what the conversion rate is, right? So taking the time to set that up is super important. I'm not going to cover that in this video because then we're going to go even longer. If you are just getting started and you don't have any conversions, come in and check, especially if you're creating a new account like I have here. And then you'll want to take the time to actually travel through and create a conversion. And my sort of personal preference is coming in and actually importing from Google Analytics, either from Universal Analytics or from a Google Analytics 4 or GA4 property. Make sure that you're at least importing that conversion from Google Analytics so that you can actually see the outcomes of your campaigns, because then you can jump back into Google Ads and start to tweak things like your budget, the bid adjustments that we're just looking at for the different devices people are using based on the actual outcomes that are happening on your website. So that's super important. I've included an extra link for more details on setting up conversion tracking in the description below this video. So now we've got our campaign up and running. And of course, you've taken the time to also set up conversion tracking. Then what you can do is when you're ready, you can come back in and you can actually launch that campaign. So remember, I paused it after I created it. Once you're happy, once you've taken the time to structure your keywords, write your ad variations, you've got your keywords and the different match types, and you have conversion tracking, you can then come in, click enable, and then all things are going smoothly. If you haven't you're not advertising on any sort of weird terms, then you'll start to see your ads up and running super quickly. Usually, when I create a new campaign, I'll see ads running within an hour or so, depending on the keywords. So what we can do is once we've got it enabled, if you do want to check, you can come into a couple of places. You can come into your ads also here. So if you actually come in, if you're not sure if your ads are showing yet, come in and look at the status column. So here we can actually see eligible. So basically here it's saying the keyword is eligible to show, but the ads aren't showing yet because they still need to be reviewed by one of Google's specialist team. So what we can then do is we can actually come in and we can come into our ads option here, and we can see here the status is under review. So once we've met Google's editorial requirements for the content that we've actually written in our ad variations, we'll actually see this column switch to approved, and then our ads will begin to display on Google search results as people are actually searching on Google. The other little tip I wanted to show you if you're not sure if your ads are showing is to also use the ad preview tool. So you'll find this under Tools and Settings and Ad Preview. And what you can do is you can actually enter in one of your search terms, and you can select the location, and you can see if your ads are running yet. So mine we know are under review, so they're not quite running yet. But once they are running, you'll actually see that. So you can actually come in and quickly check just to make sure your ads are running. If they're not running, then it will also give you additional details on anything that's going on there. So you can check out the ad preview and diagnosis tool under Tools and Settings just to make sure that's up and running. So that's how you can get up and running with Google Ads. We've taken the time now to create our campaign. We looked at those important settings as we started creating our campaign, including things like our daily budget, our bid amounts, as well as the location targeting for our campaign, which is of course important to get right as you start building out your campaign. Also remember my two tips, making sure that that you have a small daily advertising budget as you get started. So I entered $10 for my account as I created my new account. If you do put in a large amount, then you can actually spend a lot of money really quickly. So do be careful with that one. And then the other one that I'd also recommend as you get started is pause that campaign once you've done the initial setup steps, so you can spend that extra time like we did to actually build out the ad groups, making sure you've got the right keywords in those ad groups and the different ad variations. And then once you're happy, you can then re-enable that campaign to get your ads up and running. And finally, of course, importantly, making sure that you also take the time to set up conversion tracking to see the outcomes of your campaigns that you have set up inside Google Ads. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, then please like it, hit subscribe, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next time.